We're live here on the Easy Run Show. This is our third episode of our series here. And the format is we have a warm-up where we're each bringing a topic to the table here that neither one of us know. We discuss it and hopefully have some good insights for you guys. So let's go with your topic first, Eric.
My topic today in our main set is going to be health and longevity for running. And I've got a coaching hack. We'll talk about one little ingredient I think is really important for health and longevity with running.
Cool. I like that one. I'm bringing to the table today run coaching. Here in the last few weeks, I've had a couple people that I know reach out to me and ask me, one, if I'd coach them, and two, if I knew of any coaches that would coach them. So I'm curious to see what your insights are on running coaching. Like, what should a person look for? How should they find a coach? What are some things coaches do for athletes? Maybe how do you know when you're ready for a coach? So I think maybe debunk some myths out there, and then maybe go into your own coaching style and what do you deliver to your athletes.
Cool.
So I think that's something that I want to check out. Yeah. And then on our warm up, I wanted to see if you had seen the running results from last weekend with Walmsley back in the mix doing a 50K.
So I just saw the clip you sent me. I didn't follow the race at all, saw his time, saw he was kind of busting out some cobwebs for the season. But what did you,
I thought it was exciting. I thought it was cool to see him back in action. I think Western States is going to be sick this year. And I have a bigger vested interest since my friend Adrian is racing. So I think it was very cool. And I liked what Dylan Bowman had to say is that was Jim Walmsley showing a card to everyone, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah. It's always interesting, I think, when course records like that go down early season. Yeah. My coaching mind automatically goes, well, is he peaking too soon? Is he ready too soon? But at the same time, that race wasn't like high stakes race that maybe had a high standard of a course record to begin with.
Low stakes.
Yeah.
And then that leads me to the next thing in our warm up, since we're kind of geeking about running. Before we got on here, I hopped on UTMB Live to see the Chianti, which happens in a week.
Yep.
The list is loaded.
Really?
Yeah. Jim's on there. Killian's on there. I think this is how they're going to try to get into UTMB maybe. And I don't think, maybe is there a golden ticket there, or did I make that up?
I saw all the pub for the race. I don't even know what distance is. Is it 100K?
It's 120K. The 100K is 73K. It's kind of confusing. The 100K is 73K, and the 100 mile is a 120K.
Yeah, I need to get up on speed. The only thing I really know is Killian's season is kind of what's that? Yeah. So the last I heard, his schedule is still up in the air as to what he was going to even do. So,
I hope to see him. I hope to see him there. It'd be super cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's get into our main workout.
Main set. Who's going?
I think you should go.
All right. I'm going to so my main set topic is, like I mentioned, longevity and health in running. And where I want to go with this is how we can have longevity, health within how we personally want to use running throughout our life. Hopefully everybody out there wants to run as long as possible or as long as they choose to, versus being forced not to run, right? And right. Being healthy. And with that, I want to talk about the importance of having fun with your running. And that might sound like super obvious, but I think sometimes especially with social media and the proliferation of ultra long distance in running, whether it's the marathon or now ultras, or now we have 250 mile races. I think sometimes that gets talked about, and there's this elitism that kind of comes with that, is that hey, if you haven't done a marathon or if you haven't done 100 miles, you're not a runner. And I think sometimes that trickles down to the people who are just starting. And the reason I say this is I hear people talk about it all the time, from runners who maybe are just starting to run or haven't done longer races, and they'll classify themselves as, well, I'm not really a runner like you because I only do 5Ks, or I've only done a 10K. And there's nothing wrong. That can be fun. And so the point of this is find your fun, and don't get sucked down. It's got to be long for it to be fun.
Totally. Yeah, I'm going through this right now with a friend who wants to get into ultra running. He wants to get into running. Let's just not even call it ultra running. He wants to get into running, and he's like, "Yo," and he's also missing a leg, below the knee. He's got a new blade, and he's like, "Yo, I want to run like a mountain 50K," which is a great goal to have. And I'm like, I suggested coming to Broken Arrow and doing 18K, and which is tough. I mean, it's going to take a couple hours, man. But like, you don't just have to start off at a 50K. You don't have to like, and I kind of ran into that problem myself when I got into running it. I thought, oh, I need to build myself up to be able to run a 50-mile, you know?
Yep. So with this, getting back to the fun aspect, is that I think it's really, really important for people, the individual themselves, to begin to understand what about running is fun for them. And I have an example. Are you familiar with Adam Andra?
Yeah, I am. He's a climber, right?
He's a world-class, probably one of the best climbers in the world.
Yep.
When it comes to sport climbing, bouldering, and trad climbing. And I saw him in an interview with Alex Honnold. And now we kind of know who Alex Honnold is. If you don't, he's known for his free soloing, climbing without ropes. He was, the main subject in the movie Free Solo.
Yeah.
And so here you have two world-class climbers in the same room. And on the surface, you would say, these are the best climbers out there. But if you know more about climbing, these two athletes are completely different. One's like the equivalent of a 1,500 meter, and the other's the equivalent of the 100-mile type of runner.
Is Alex Honnold the 100-miler?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Adam, again, is like speed climbing, sport climbing, where everything is very, very strength and high level oriented. And so where I'm going with this is that in that interview, they got on the subject, and Adam says, I love to work out and train hard every day because it is hard. And then it went to Alex, and Alex goes, I like to work out at 70% every day because it's not hard.
Interesting.
And so both of those guys understood their fun. Adam needs it to be hard all the time, and it reflects somewhat of the type of athletes they are and what they have to do. But they really understood what was fun for them, and it's, I believe, part of what keeps them stoked, what keeps them motivated, and keeps it fun for them, because they understand what is fun for them.
Yeah, it's like, what's your why?
Right. And that also can change, and I'll use myself as an example. There's some years where I'm like, oh, I'm going to the track twice a week because I miss flat, fast track stuff.
Totally.
Other years I'm like, all right, it's all about vertical this year.
Totally.
And so changing it up, for me, that's fun. Like I like the training aspect. I like to learn by changing things up to help other people. That's what's fun for me. I understand that maybe year to year, my fun changes. And so,
cool.
Yeah. So my point of this rant is start to have this like internal awareness of maybe what is fun for you, and continue to learn about that and honor it, and not get sucked down a certain path because other people are doing it. And that, to me, is what really helps that stoke factor, that fun factor, that motivation factor year to year, for hopefully as long as we want to run.
Let me take a stab at translating what I just got from this.
Okay.
That it's okay and almost encouraged to check in with yourself and see what is fun, and it's okay to have a change. Like what was fun last year might not be fun this year, and that's okay. There is no like, oh, you have to be doing the same thing, otherwise maybe you're failing. So maybe, like you said, track workouts are cool.
Yep.
Maybe next year they're not cool, and that's all right.
You
Keep
know,
having fun.
in my book, The Cool Impossible, I talked about two different types of athletes that I kind of see in general. Is that sometimes there's like the adventure athlete, where this runner needs like a new challenge every year. It's got to be something new and different, whether it's upping in distance or different types of courses. And then on the flip side, there's that athlete who, hey, they just want to get better at one thing, and it's just about improving over time.
Yeah.
And again, to your point of starting to learn about yourself and understanding where you maybe fit there, and being okay with it. And once you understand it, then you can really drive it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm going through that myself as an athlete. The last 6 months, I've been at the track 90% of my workouts.
Yeah.
There's just something that changed in my brain. Whereas like 2 years ago, I would have hated to go to a track to work out, but now I'm back there and I find some sort of challenge and comfort in it.
And we've talked about this, you and I, in coaching, is that part of your mission with Born to Adapt is, inspiring people and getting in front of people in different formats. And we kind of made that shift in our talking of, hey, instead of maybe peaking for one race and doing well at one race,
yeah,
you've now got to be this like multi-discipline type of runner that needs to be ready for a marathon and needs to be ready for you love going to the track.
I do.
And part of this too is a coaching hack of, once we understand what's fun, we can then look at, let's use the track as an example. If I said to you, you're going to go to the track and you get to pick one distance to do intervals, what would you choose?
Probably 400s.
Right. Okay. So that suits your ability.
They're hard, but
we gravitate to what we're good at.
Yeah.
And therefore,
I wouldn't say I'm good at 400s, but
right. But it's maybe what you feel strongest at, versus like going and do mile repeats. Right.
Yeah. Those are tough.
Okay.
Too.
My point is that when it's something that we feel we're good at and fun, it's fun. Yeah. So if we're good at it versus not good at it, it's more fun for us. Yeah. So for the listeners out there, they can start asking themselves, what type of runs do I like to do? What type of intervals do I gravitate to? What type of workouts do I gravitate to? And then look at that and say, okay, those types of workouts are probably my strength because I gravitate to it.
Yeah.
But early season, to train your weakness, do just the opposite of what you'd gravitate to.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can use what's fun for you as a way to develop some strength and weaknesses to put into your training. And so instead of using yours for an example, instead of doing fun 400s, hey, maybe you're doing 800s or 1200s that are a little outside of your comfort zone to work on your weakness early season, which is ideal. You want to work on your weaknesses early season, and then gravitate to your strength as you get closer to races.
I can't wait for the day that I can run intervals again at the track, whether they're 400s or 1200s.
Yeah. So seek out your fun, and don't let anyone tell you what fun is. Fun's different for everybody.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that kind of goes into the next thing about coaching, right? Like So I've had a couple of running coaches in my life. And I remember the first time I got a running coach, this is probably like 2020, um, outside of like the Paralympic world. So like a running coach for what I'm doing now. I didn't think I think I thought I had to be at a certain level to bring in a coach, which I think is wrong. But I didn't know that. And I just remember being somewhere and somebody that would have thought as a casual runner was like, "Oh yeah, I have a call with my coach." And I was like, "You have a coach?" They were like, "Yeah, you don't have a coach?" And I was like, "Should I get a like?" It was just very interesting now looking back that I thought you had to be at a certain level to get a coach. But yeah. So how do you find a coach? Because there's a lot of coaches out there in the world in general, but for running, I feel like there's a lot. It's a saturated like market. So as an athlete, whether you're an age group athlete, somebody just getting into running, or whether you're an elite athlete, how do you find a coach? What do you do?
All right, I have a comment before that.
Yeah.
Based on what you just said of who should have a coach. So let's use tennis as an example. Let's we have two athletes trying to learn to serve. We have a pro tennis player and we have a beginner tennis player
Hmm.
with one coach. They're both there at the same time. Okay. Who's going to benefit more from the coaching?
Probably the beginner is what my first instinct is.
Exactly. The pro already knows how. You're not going to. So my point being is that most times the runner who's going to benefit the most from coaching is someone who is serious about their goals, but doesn't have the foundation or the background in running that they're going to see leaps and bounds of improvement. Everybody's going to benefit from a coach. And again, the more you maybe have never been coached, the more you're going to react to coaching.
Yeah. I like having a coach. I mean, I think it's nice to have somebody have other eyeballs on what you're doing. I think what I've learned having a coach, there's been times, especially year over year, when you're like kind of grading yourself year over year, where I thought I'd had a bad workout and I told myself that was a bad workout, that I've been better than this. And then you go back and look at the year before and you're like, shit, like actually that this workout I thought was bad is actually better than what I thought was good. So it's really cool to have somebody like witnessing you on that level. But then like what else do you look at when you're like coaching? What kind of things, how are you writing plans? Like what are you just pulling out random plans and throwing them in on a Tuesday, or how do you do it personally?
Yeah, so I think there's a fundamental difference between a coach using a template program
Mm-hmm.
and sending it to an athlete versus a coach understanding on so many levels what that specific athlete needs for their own personal gain.
Yep.
And those two often get kind of muddied and morphed together. So I'm more on the latter, is that yes, I have a library of workouts that I choose from to create a custom program. But for me, what coaching is understanding the individual athlete and knowing exactly what they need and taking the guesswork out of it for them so they can focus on just doing the day to day. Is that here's our goal? We have a goal 6 months from now. I work backwards to create this program.
Mm.
And through testing, it sounds even so weird, but I can tell a lot about an athlete in just how they word emails, of how they, just the words they use. It tells me a lot about their personality that then goes into what is needed from a workout. And for example, I'll just use an athlete that I've done this in the past where I've had an athlete who relied so much on the watch, and
Mm.
everything had to be a certain way, down to how they tie their shoes, and they tried to control every part of their life and their training and their running. And this works great for a coach because they're so detail oriented. But sometimes when they try to control the situation, they don't deal well with adversity. And so, what I would commonly do then is tell them to go out for a run with no watch. And maybe it's a 3 hour run. And I'll say, no watch, go someplace you've never been before. And you have to run for 3 hours and intuitively know when 3 hours is up and see how close they can get. And so that blows their mind, because now they have to be kind of in themselves and they can't try to control the situation, and they just let go.
They
And
probably
so
feel like they're
that's
going
just an
rogue.
example of how a coach, I feel, needs to get and learn about each individual athlete and coach them as an individual athlete. And to me, that's what coaching is. It's not just sending out a plan.
Yeah. I know, I'm not going to say names, but there's people that I know in the world that are elite level runners that hate structured
Mhm.
programs, and they like to run off feel.
Yep.
But they've been running for 25 years of their life, so they have a lot of experience and they could probably be a coach themselves. But a structured plan doesn't make running fun for them. So, and they've realized that when it's not fun, they don't like running. So, I just think there's a different approach for everyone. There's not a blueprint that works for everyone. But my advice to people when they're looking for coaches is don't settle on just one person. Maybe interview like 2 or 3 of them and just go off your vibe, go off of what feels good, because everybody is a little bit different.
And I think it goes back to my topic of fun and understanding what's fun for you. And I totally agree. Not everybody is suited for my type of coaching. That structure works really, really well for certain types of personalities. And that's what I seek out. For example, you know, quite often I'll hear from athletes interested in my coaching. And one example, they were kind of blown away that I didn't rely on doing phone calls and Zoom calls
Hmm.
as part of the coaching that a lot of coaches do. Um, and I don't really like to rely on that, because if we're relying on something that happens at the end of the week or the end of the month, we've lost all that time to correct things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that daily communication that is my style that
Yeah.
helps us speed things along. We can gravitate to and change things up immediately versus, again, waiting. Hey, our call is scheduled next Tuesday. Let's talk about it then. Well, we're missing a week.
Totally.
But that doesn't work for everybody. Okay, so to your point, interview coaches, get out there and see what their style is, and understand your personality as an athlete, and find that match.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. Um, yeah, I think there's something for everybody out there. And what works for me may not work for the next person, which is cool.
And,
There's a variety.
and I think too, with AI and all there's so many good free training programs out there for those that just need some guidance. To me, I tell people, coaching's not about sending workouts; it's about sending belief.
Yeah.
So really, hardcore true coaching becomes that developing that relationship of coach and athlete that really transcends what they think they can accomplish. And if you're just looking for a plan, there's lots of ways to get that free that maybe probably serves most people really well.
My Garmin tells me every day suggested workout. Hey, you want to try this? And I'm
Yeah.
always like,
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing I do too is I do a lot of consulting, especially for um, those athletes who don't like structure.
Mm-hmm.
we'll set up a council call and just work through something very specific. Maybe it's, hey, I do a lot of visualization training and doing training the brain, and maybe working through nutrition for a race. So there's a lot of different types of coaching out there that doesn't have to be this long term coaching towards a race. That can be super
Yeah.
helpful.
I'm learning this right now. I'm coaching my
Yeah.
first. Well, I guess
Yep.
I've had a couple athletes I'm coaching.
Yep.
But yeah, it's fun. I think it's a fun to share some wisdom and experience and problem solve. I like the problem solving aspect of it, especially when you're with adaptive
Yep.
athletes, somebody running with a blade. There's always some problem solving happening, as you know.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that's what's fun to me. It's like, that's why, I don't like coaching a lot of pro runners. I love coaching age groupers who have a job and have a family, but is super dedicated to their craft and their goals. There's so many ways to figure out ways to get them better. And to me, that's the puzzle. That's what's the fun about coaching is finding what is it that this individual is going to really need to really catapult their performance.
Fun.
Yeah.
Let's end it on that.
Fun. Yeah. Very
Cool. Well, I think we've covered everything. And if anybody's got any questions from this conversation, I think it's cool to drop them in the comments because we like to interact with whoever's listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So don't forget to ask any question, even if it's not related to what we just talked about.
Yep. Throw down topics too for us.
Throw down topics, suggestions.
My cool down, warm down, whatever word you want to use. I'm super excited for the Grand Slam Track League, started by Michael Johnson.
Yeah. When does that start?
The first one is April 4th through 6th in Kingston, Jamaica. And I don't know, I'm just super jazzed on. Here's a guy who's, I looked him up. He's the only runner to double in the 200 meter and the 400 meter in the Olympics. And he's only ever won gold medals in world championships or the Olympics.
Man.
And here he is, CEO now, is trying to start this new league to really elevate the track athlete. And I think it's going to be, I don't know, I'm just really jazzed to see what he does with it.
Are they going to have all events, or what events are going to be showcased?
So it's track only, no field. Okay. And the longest distance is a 5,000. So they have their long distance is considered a 3,000 and a 5,000. And those two will be the longest distance, and everything, faster than that, including hurdles.
Do you know if Ingebrigtsen will be there?
I don't know.
That's my guy. As you know, that's my guy right now.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
How do you watch that?
So it's going to be in the US. It's going to be on CW network, which is sometimes shown on one of the networks.
Okay. So it's going to be on TV.
Yeah. Cool. And that's, I think, what was the big, this is going to be kind of like watching the Olympics now every year.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then I forget what other streaming services, but they'll be on streaming services too. So I think it'll be pretty accessible, which is the point.
Super cool.
Yeah. So what do you got for the warm down, cool down? Anything?
Not really. I'm going to go do my workout. My coach is probably wondering why it's not uploaded yet.
Yeah, that's right. You're all right. Let's close with this. Okay. Why do you like running later in the day?
I don't like it.
Okay.
I have a hard time getting up in the morning, for one. I'm not a morning person. So I often find myself just not motivated to run in the morning. I don't. The only time I run in the morning is if I have a big workout, like a long one, like a long run. That's going to take me a couple hours. Then I'll definitely get out by 10. But I don't know. I've never been a guy that wants to work out in the morning, whether it's lifting weights in the weight room or working out in wrestling or running. I'm just not. And even when whenever somebody invites me to a group run, like, "Oh, yeah, you gotta get there by 8." I'm like, "Oh, man, I don't know if I can make that." Just I don't
Yeah, see,
know.
I'm just the opposite. Until it gets summer, there's sometimes I love going out in the evening,
Yeah.
um, in the mountains. But I'm definitely like that 9 a.m., 10 a.m. Fortunately, I can go anytime, but that's kind of my sweet spot.
Well,
Um,
I like to run in the midday because then you avoid the people that are running in the morning. I don't like running around people because I people, no offense to anyone, but people want to talk to me and I can't talk and run at the same time very well. I'm like
yeah,
so dialed in to the thing
yeah,
and I don't want to come across as a jerk. So I like to run in peace.
yep,
So that's kind of maybe why I run at weird times that other people don't run. And I also took a quote from somebody, maybe it was Tim Ferriss or somebody that's a really highly effective, that studied highly effective people. And there's always this thing of like, oh, you got to get up really early to be an early riser or you're not going to be successful. And actually, if you perform well between 9 p.m. and midnight, and that's when you do your best work, then you need to plan your best work around those hours. So don't let someone tell you that to be successful, you have to do it at a certain time. Everybody's got a different thing, and you need to make sure that you perform around whatever time period that is, unless, of course, if you're getting ready for like a marathon or something and that starts at 8 a.m., it's always a good
yeah,
thing to start that early. Or I know like even like UFC fighters and even like Floyd Mayweather, back when I like watched him train, he would do a lot of training at like 10 o'clock at night. So he would do a lot of sparring at late at night because that's when he's going to fight.
right.
So there's strategy behind it. You don't have to get up at 6 a.m. and be successful. You can do it on your own terms.
I think that encapsulates our complete theme for this is find what's fun for you, understand your own self, and don't get sucked down someone else's path.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Peace out,
So,
everybody.
all right.